You made press because you were on Stephen Colbert's show, and he said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight, and the crowd burst into laughter. That tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side.
Bill Maher didn't hold back when calling out CNN's Kaitlan Collins, slamming her for hypocrisy, bias, and prioritizing agenda-driven narratives over objective journalism. According to Maher, CNN has a habit of downplaying Democratic controversies while aggressively targeting figures like Donald Trump. His remarks added fuel to an already growing debate. Is CNN's credibility crumbling? Maher specifically pointed to the network's handling of the Hunter Biden laptop story, suggesting that its selective coverage has made people more skeptical of mainstream media. And he's not alone. Megyn Kelly also weighed in, arguing that Collins' reporting lacks impartiality. With more voices raising concerns, it begs the question, is public trust in CNN and legacy media eroding? As criticism mounts, the conversation around journalistic integrity becomes more pressing. Are networks like CNN losing the trust of their viewers? And if so, what does this mean for the future of news reporting? Let's take a deeper dive into Maher's critique and explore the broader implications for journalism.
I'm sorry, but she's only a star with leftists, and the fact that she has some roots in Alabama does not make her a fair and balanced reporter. I will submit to the record, her biggest sin is not that she is biased, though she is, it's that she's boring. She's extremely boring with no personality. I have a pro tip for her. Smile. Try smiling every once in a while. Try not to be, like, in your delivery, such a cold-hearted all the time, because it gives people nothing to bond to. You can be a tough interviewer and also have some more.
Bill Maher didn't hold back when he took aim at CNN's handling of Trump's interview with Kaitlan Collins. Rather than maintaining a neutral stance, Collins took an assertive approach, firing off pointed questions that many perceived as an attempt to put Trump on the defensive. While some praised her for holding him accountable, others saw it as a deliberate effort to corner him, blurring the lines between journalism and activism. Maher's critique only added fuel to the debate. Was this a hard-hitting interview or a case of bias disguised as tough reporting?
In my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing with that?
How is CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And I think, you know, my show is evidence of that. We have lawmakers on from both parties. We'll have Elizabeth Warren on one, we'll have Ted Cruz on another night. I think lawmakers from both parties should take questions, and you should push both of them. But on CNN being a place of credibility, I mean, look at what just happened in Chicago. We had 300 people from CNN on the ground covering that convention.
Collins seemed more focused on elevating Trump's presence than conducting a truly objective interview. Yet, rather than struggling under the pressure, Trump navigated the situation with ease. The moment he recognized the tone of the discussion, Ma began questioning whether CNN was genuinely hosting a fair conversation. To Ma, both Collins and CNN appeared more invested in shaping a particular narrative than in practicing true journalism. The exchange felt less like an effort to uncover real solutions and more like a strategic attempt to push a specific agenda. Even longtime CNN viewers are beginning to raise eyebrows at the network's credibility, and Ma wasn't shy about pointing it out. He insisted that the approach taken by Collins and CNN only fueled growing skepticism about whether mainstream media remains a reliable source of impartial reporting.
Violent language about migrants, invasion, etc. He also started going off about what he called the Biden indictment trials, which I'm sure we're going to hear more of that language, calling them election interference. And then he said, look, there's a lot of people, there's polling showing that you all thought that the 2020 election was trouble as well. So it's like he's still leaning into that, and he is encouraged by the portion of the electorate in Iowa that agrees with him.
One of Bill Maher's biggest criticisms of CNN revolves around what he sees as selective outrage. He argues that while the network dedicates extensive coverage to Donald Trump's controversies, it doesn't apply the same level of scrutiny to Hunter Biden's scandals. Maher specifically highlighted the case of Hunter Biden's laptop, a story initially dismissed by mainstream media as a baseless conspiracy, but later verified as legitimate. Despite its credibility, he noted that major outlets, including CNN, failed to give it the same relentless attention they likely would have if the controversy involved Trump or his family. This, according to Maher, exposes a broader issue: media bias and how scandals are covered based on political affiliation.
So because he forgets to pick up his laptop,
Right.
this guy now owns it and sells it to Fox News.
This guy
who then
happens
can
to be a
take the
Republican.
pictures of his
Yeah.
dick, disseminate it to everybody in the media who can then hold it up in Congress. Is there a legal mind here who can explain that to me? Because I never got that part.
Yeah,
of it.
don't do crack.
The difference is impossible to ignore. Mark openly questioned why one side seemed to be under relentless scrutiny, while the other was allowed to operate with minimal oversight. If journalism is truly about uncovering facts and presenting the truth, shouldn't all politicians, regardless of their party, be held to the same rigorous standards? This isn't just a question of fairness, it's a fundamental issue that strikes at the heart of modern media. The public relies on journalists to provide unbiased reporting, yet time and time again, we see a pattern where certain figures face constant media trials while others seem to skate by without consequence. Mark's words weren't just an observation, they were a challenge to the media, to political analysts, and to the viewers themselves. Are we consuming information passively, or are we questioning the narratives being fed to us? The imbalance in coverage raises a pressing concern. Has journalism become more about influence than integrity? The conversation doesn't stop there. This selective scrutiny isn't just about politicians, it extends to celebrities, business moguls, and even social movements. Some scandals are amplified, dissected, and sensationalized, while others barely make a dent in the news cycle. The question is, who decides which stories are worth telling, and more importantly, why? Mark's stance sparked a heated debate. Some argued that scrutiny is necessary, that public figures should be held accountable no matter who they are, but others countered that when one side is disproportionately targeted while the other is given a free pass, the media becomes less about truth and more about manipulation. This isn't just speculation. History has shown us how selective reporting can shape public perception. Political careers have been made or destroyed based on how the media chooses to frame events. Policies that impact millions are often debated in headlines rather than on their actual merit. And in an era where viral moments can dictate political outcomes, the media's role has never been more powerful or more dangerous. So where does that leave us? Should we accept that bias is just a part of modern journalism? Or is it time to demand a return to true, fact-based reporting? Mark's words force us to reconsider everything we think we know about the media landscape. One thing is clear, this isn't just about one politician or one party. It's about the integrity of the press, the responsibility of journalists, and the right of the public to have access to unbiased information. What do you think? Is the media playing favorites, or is the scrutiny justified? The debate is just getting started. Let us know where you stand, because this conversation is far from over.
So there's a lot of issues that the Justice Department has looked into, including, of course, this laptop that on the right wing has featured a lot of stories about Hunter Biden. We know the FBI has possession of it and that they believe it is his laptop, that the contents of it are his.
Mark argues that the growing disparity in media coverage is becoming impossible to ignore. And worse, it may be causing irreparable damage to the credibility of major news networks. He isn't alone in his concerns. Public trust in the media has been eroding for years. And now, even some traditionally left-leaning viewers are beginning to question the integrity of networks they once considered reliable. One of the biggest names facing scrutiny? CNN. Once hailed as a gold standard for journalism, CNN built its reputation on balanced reporting and in-depth investigative work, but according to Mark, that reputation is fading fast. He points out that more and more the network appears to be taking a side in its reporting, something that was once considered taboo for an organization that prided itself on neutrality. This shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Critics from both the left and right have accused CNN of selective coverage, agenda-driven narratives, and a tendency to frame stories in ways that align with a particular ideological viewpoint. It's a stark contrast to the CNN of the past, which was respected for delivering news with minimal bias. So what changed? Some media analysts believe the shift started during the Trump presidency, when CNN took an increasingly combative stance against the administration. While some viewers applauded the network for holding power accountable, others saw it as a departure from journalistic objectivity. Over time, CNN's tone became more polarized, and its reputation for fairness started to erode. Now, in an era where misinformation spreads like wildfire, and people are more skeptical of mainstream media than ever before, CNN finds itself at a crossroads. Can it regain the trust of disillusioned viewers, or has it gone too far down the path of advocacy journalism? And let's not forget the financial implications. As audiences become more divided, advertisers are also paying attention. Many corporations are wary of being associated with networks that are perceived as too partisan, fearing backlash from consumers on both ends of the political spectrum. If CNN continues down this path, it risks alienating not just viewers, but also the advertisers who fund its programming. This crisis of credibility extends beyond CNN. The broader media landscape is shifting, with independent journalists, podcasts, and alternative news sources gaining traction. Viewers are no longer dependent on mainstream networks for information. They have options, and they're exploring them. So what does the future hold for CNN? Will it course correct and attempt to reclaim its position as a neutral, fact-based news source? Or will it fully embrace the role of an opinion-driven network, following in the footsteps of channels like Fox News and MSNBC? One thing is clear, the media industry is at a turning point, and CNN's next moves will determine whether it can rebuild its reputation or continue down a path of increasing skepticism and distrust. What do you think? Is CNN still a credible news source, or has it lost its way? Drop your thoughts below and join the conversation.
And finally, new rule. Now that polls show that the public finds the news media less trustworthy than Donald Trump, they have to fight to get their reputation back. And there are encouraging signs that that fight has been joined. The New York Times no longer shies away from saying Trump lies on the front page.
Mark argues that the growing disparity in media coverage is becoming impossible to ignore, and worse, it may be causing irreparable damage to the credibility of major news networks. He isn't alone in his concerns. Public trust in the media has been eroding for years, and now even some traditionally left-leaning viewers are beginning to question the integrity of networks they once considered reliable. One of the biggest names facing scrutiny? CNN. Once hailed as a gold standard for journalism, CNN built its reputation on balanced reporting and in-depth investigative work. But according to Mark, that reputation is fading fast. He points out that more and more, the network appears to be taking a side in its reporting, something that was once considered taboo for an organization that prided itself on neutrality. This shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Critics from both the left and right have accused CNN of selective coverage, agenda-driven narratives, and a tendency to frame stories in ways that align with a particular ideological viewpoint. It's a stark contrast to the CNN of the past, which was respected for delivering news with minimal bias. So what changed? Megyn Kelly didn't hold back either. She took aim at Kaitlan Collins, calling her demeanor unreal and aloof, suggesting that her approach lacked authenticity. But Kelly's critique didn't stop there. She pointed out an irony that many found intriguing. Collins, who once worked in right-wing media, now appears to have embraced a bias that runs counter to her past affiliations. The shift, according to Kelly, raises questions about Collins' journalistic integrity and whether her reporting on CNN is truly fair or driven by a larger agenda. But here's where things get even more complicated. The bigger issue isn't just about individual reporters, it's about trust. Audiences are becoming increasingly skeptical of mainstream media, questioning whether news networks are genuinely objective or simply catering to ideological narratives, and that distrust is having real consequences. Studies show that a growing number of viewers are tuning out, opting instead for independent media, podcasts, and alternative news sources. Social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, and Substack are now the go-to places for those seeking unfiltered perspectives, often from individuals, not corporations. This shift in media consumption is reshaping the industry at an alarming pace. Traditional networks that once dominated the news cycle are losing their grip, struggling to maintain relevance in an era where audiences crave authenticity over polished news segments. People no longer just watch the news. They actively fact-check, cross-reference, and engage in real-time debates. So where does this leave CNN, Kaitlan Collins, and the broader media landscape? If the current trend continues, networks that fail to regain public trust may find themselves fighting for survival. The days of unquestioned authority in journalism are fading. In their place, a new era where credibility is earned, not assumed. But the question remains, can mainstream media repair its reputation, or are we witnessing the beginning of a permanent shift? And more importantly, who do you trust to deliver the truth? Drop your thoughts below, because this conversation is just getting started.
We all know about the fake news. The ratings decline has been epic, and they've been pushing the same narratives. They don't seem to have learned any lessons from the last election. Your thought?
Well, we've been seeing their viewership decline for the last few years. If they can't say anything bad about Trump for the people with Trump derangement syndrome to watch, then they have nothing to report. They're not doing actual investigative journalism.
Mark argues that the growing disparity in media coverage is becoming impossible to ignore. And worse, it may be causing irreparable damage to the credibility of major news networks. He isn't alone in his concerns. Public trust in the media has been eroding for years, and now even some traditionally left-leaning viewers are beginning to question the integrity of networks they once considered reliable. One of the biggest names facing scrutiny? CNN. Once hailed as a gold standard for journalism, CNN built its reputation on balanced reporting and in-depth investigative work. But according to Mark, that reputation is fading fast. He points out that more and more, the network appears to be taking a side in its reporting, something that was once considered taboo for an organization that prided itself on neutrality. This shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Critics from both the left and right have accused CNN of selective coverage, agenda-driven narratives, and a tendency to frame stories in ways that align with a particular ideological viewpoint. It's a stark contrast to the CNN of the past, which was respected for delivering news with minimal bias. So, what changed? The interview took an unexpected turn when Maher pressed Collins with pointed questions about CNN's claims of impartiality. His challenge was direct. How can CNN present itself as an objective news source when its coverage often leans in one direction? Why does the network frequently highlight only one side of the narrative if it truly aims to represent both? Collins, caught off guard, struggled to craft a convincing response on the spot. The moment of hesitation spoke volumes, highlighting a broader issue, one that has fueled debates on media ethics for years. Can major networks truly remain impartial, especially in an era where political polarization dominates public discourse? This exchange resonated deeply with viewers. Many felt it exposed a fundamental flaw in modern journalism, the struggle between maintaining credibility and catering to audience expectations. For some, it reinforced the perception that mainstream media has become more about shaping narratives than presenting unfiltered facts. Beyond this interview, the moment reignited discussions about the effectiveness of relentless criticism of former President Trump. Despite years of negative press, Trump's influence remains strong, and his speeches continue to draw large audiences. Maher noted that a significant portion of viewers responded positively to Trump's most recent speech, despite the media's attempts to paint him as a divisive figure. But why? Some argue that constant attacks on Trump have had the opposite effect. Rather than diminishing his support, they've solidified his base. Others believe that audiences have grown weary of one-sided reporting, seeking alternative sources that challenge mainstream narratives. This dynamic isn't just about Trump, it's about a shifting media landscape. Trust in journalism is declining, and networks like CNN face growing scrutiny over their editorial choices. Are news organizations truly informing the public, or are they selectively amplifying perspectives that align with their own agendas? Meanwhile, social media platforms have changed the game entirely. People no longer rely solely on traditional news outlets. Instead, they turn to independent journalists, podcasts, and alternative media for perspectives they feel mainstream networks ignore. Could this signal the beginning of the end for legacy media dominance?